They say you should never make a young, talented player angry. The NBA learned that lesson the hard way when they snubbed Alperen Şengün from the 2024 All-Star Game. What happened next turned a humble Turkish center into one of the most dangerous players in the league, and the numbers will shock you. February 1st, 2024. All-Star reserves were announced, and Alperen Şengün's name wasn't on the list. The 22-year-old center had been putting up monster numbers all season: 21 points, 9 rebounds, and 6 assists per game, while leading the Houston Rockets to their best record in years. But instead of Alperen, the coaches selected players who had worse stats, played for bigger markets, or simply had more name recognition. Kristaps Porzingis made it despite missing 20 games. Domantas Sabonis got in with worse numbers across the board. Even Nick Claxton was chosen ahead of him. The basketball world was divided. ESPN analysts called it one of the biggest all-star snubs in recent memory. Former players took to social media expressing outrage, but perhaps the most telling reaction came from his own teammates. "That's disrespectful," said Houston veteran Fred VanVleet after the announcement. "Alperen's been our best player all season. If putting up 20 and 9 while leading your team to wins doesn't get you an all-star spot, then I don't know what does." But it wasn't just the stats that made the snub so painful. It was the timing. Alperen had been on an incredible run leading up to All-Star Weekend, including a stretch where he recorded 4 triple-doubles in 6 games. Alperen's immediate reaction to the snub was typically classy and professional. In interviews, he congratulated the players who made it and said he would use the time off to rest and prepare for the second half of the season. But behind closed doors, those close to him say the snub lit a fire that had been building all season. As an international player on a small market team, Alperen had already felt overlooked by the broader NBA community. The All-Star snub was just the final confirmation that playing great basketball wasn't enough. You needed the right jersey, the right market, and the right connections. "He didn't say much about it publicly," said one teammate who requested anonymity, "but you could tell it bothered him. He started working out even harder, staying in the gym longer. It was like he was trying to prove a point to everyone who didn't vote for him." The snub also had an unexpected effect on his approach to the game. Where Alperen had always been known for his unselfish play and team-first mentality, teammates noticed a subtle shift. He was still the same player, but there was an edge to his performance that hadn't been there before. The post-All-Star break version of Alperen Şengün was unlike anything the NBA had seen before. Starting with the very first game after the break, he began putting up numbers that forced even his biggest critics to take notice. In his first game back, against the Denver Nuggets and reigning MVP Nikola Jokic, Alperen dropped 32 points, 15 rebounds, and 8 assists in a statement victory that had everyone talking. But that was just the beginning. Over the next 20 games, Alperen averaged an insane 26 points, 12 rebounds, and 7 assists while shooting 52% from the field. More importantly, he was doing it in the clutch moments that matter most. His fourth-quarter scoring average jumped from 4.2 points before the All-Star break to 8.7 points after. But the most dramatic change was in his leadership style. The quiet, humble player who had always deferred to veterans was suddenly taking charge in ways that surprised everyone. He was calling out plays, demanding the ball in crucial situations, and showing a confidence level that bordered on arrogance. "It was like watching Clark Kent turn into Superman," said one Western Conference scout. Same player, same skills, but suddenly there was this killer instinct that wasn't there before. The All-Star snub unleashed something in him. The transformation was so dramatic that opposing coaches began game planning specifically for this new version of Alperen. Teams that had previously focused on stopping other Rockets players suddenly found themselves dedicating entire defensive schemes to containing the Turkish center. What made Alperen's post-snub run even more impressive was how he seemed to elevate his play specifically against the teams and players who had been selected over him. It was as if he had a personal vendetta against every All-Star who had made it while he stayed home. Against the Pacers and Tyrese Halliburton, who had been chosen as an injury replacement, Alperen put up 28 points and 13 rebounds in a dominant victory. Facing off against Kristaps Porzingis and the Celtics, he outplayed the All-Star center with 24 points, 11 rebounds, and 6 assists in another impressive win. But the most satisfying revenge came against Domantas Sabonis and the Sacramento Kings. In what many considered a head-to-head matchup between two players who should have switched All-Star spots, Alperen absolutely dominated, posting 31 points, 14 rebounds, and 9 assists while completely outclassing Sabonis on both ends of the floor. After that game, Sabonis himself acknowledged what everyone was thinking. That guy should have been an All-Star. He's been playing at that level all season. By the end of the regular season, Alperen's post-All-Star break performance had completely changed the conversation around his snub. What had initially been seen as a controversial but defensible decision by the coaches was now being called one of the worst All-Star oversights in recent history. More importantly, the snub had transformed Alperen from a promising young player into a legitimate superstar. His confidence, his aggression, and his willingness to take over games when needed had all reached new levels. Today, when people talk about Alperen Şengün's development, they often point to the 2024 All-Star snub as the moment when everything changed. Not because being left out motivated him to work harder, he was already doing that, but because it gave him permission to be great. Sometimes the best thing that can happen to a young star is being told they're not good enough. For Alperen Şengün, that All-Star snub didn't just make him angry, it made him dangerous, and the rest of the NBA is still dealing with the consequences.